This morning, I'd like to talk about a record that didn't really get a huge amount of publicity, either beforehand or when it actually came out. Didn't get much attention at all, which is a bit unfair because it's a good record, and I think it's improved with age like a fine wine. And the record I'm talking about is this Rock Island from Jethro Tull from 1989. Now, I saw them on this tour and they were rather good, to say the least. I'd never seen them before, so I didn't quite know what to expect. The programme there, very well produced, cracking, great pictures. Funny little map there to go along with the whole concept of an island. So, as I say, this came out in 1989. We're close to the 90s now. Tull's sound has changed considerably over the years, obviously. On this, it's a much more mature sounding Jethro Tull. Again, more of the concept of the sort of island. There was a single called Kissing Willie, which shouldn't be funny, but still to this day, I just find that amusing. I don't know why. I'm just immature, what can I say? It got 0 airplay on the radio, because I checked. And I did used to listen to radio in those days. I can't listen to radio now, it's completely unlistenable. Anyway, how did the show go? Well, the show was around about September 89, I believe, Manchester Apollo. I was upstairs, again slap bang in the middle, looking right down on the guys. Bit like the seat I had for Dio 2 years previously. And they had the big white sort of balloon things going on towards the end. That was great, punching them away. So that was going on. I kind of expected that because I'd seen images of that kind of thing from the 70s. So I was kind of hoping for that. They played a number of songs off the record. One of the things I do remember is Dwayne Perry's drumming was masterful. I'd never seen him before with anybody. And I think this was his first record with the band. Now, the actual lineup for that tour was as follows. So you had, obviously, Ian Anderson, Martin Barr, standard. You had Dave Pegg and Dwayne Perry. And somebody from Fairport Convention on keyboards called Martin Alcock. And also there was some added keyboards on the record by a former member of the band going back to the early 80s, early to mid 80s, Peter Vitesse. So yeah, I will always have that image in my mind of Dwayne Perry slamming those drums, and that bass drum in particular, the front head, was just going like that. He was really rocking that night. Ian Anderson was on good form. This was shortly after the whole Metallica debacle, the Grammy Awards in America, where they didn't turn up, obviously, even though they won it. And Metallica were crying and saying, oh, it should have been us. And so during Figures of Brick, there was a big projection behind them, big screen, and there was a picture of Metallica, but all the heads had been replaced by bricks. Black and white shot. And that was quite amusing. People seemed to enjoy that. So it was a good show, and I'm glad I saw them. That tour, that show, that day has some difficult memories for me, as my team, Manchester United, well, let's just say they were embarrassed. And it was the worst kind of embarrassment you could imagine. It was against City. So let's just not talk about that. But Jethro Tull saved my day. It was a Saturday, back in the day when football used to take place on Saturday. And Jethro Tull saved my day. I didn't go to the match. I was hanging around town most of the time with mates. and then headed off to the gig. So I didn't know this gone until I got home. And then I saw it on Match of the Day and just thought, what a lot of cobblers. But I didn't mind too much because I was euphoric after that fantastic gig by Ian Anderson, Martin Barr and the rest of the fellas. So, apart from Kissing Willie, what else is on this record? Well, we have The Rattlesnake Trail, which is not bad. Ears of Tin, not really. Undressed to Kill. Again, it seemed to me that they were trying to be a bit blatant on this record. And I prefer a subtle Jethro Tull. You had Rock Island, which is a good song. Then you had Heavy Water, which was kind of like the heavy song. Another Christmas song, which is good, but again, in September, don't want to hear that. The Whalers' Dues, that's kind of like the big epic, the sort of eco-epic, because obviously Ian Anderson is and was concerned about the environment. Nothing wrong with that. Big Riff and Mando, this is the sort of semi-autobiographical piece concerning Martin Barr and his mandolin that got stolen on that tour, or some tour, by apparently a fan. So these things happen, sadly. It happens to the big bands, it happens to the smaller bands. Equipment has always been robbed, sadly. It's just par for the course. Unfortunately, there will always be thieves out there. It's just the way it is. And so it ends on Strange Avenues, which is a quiet little number, but nice and subtle and very good. So this is quite a subtle album in places, but in other places, it's the guys being quite blatant, with songs like Kissing Willie, and Undressed to Kill and Heavy Water. They seem to be trying to make some sort of point, which surprised me because I heard an interview with Ian Anderson and Martin Barr before this came out. And Radio 1 played it back in the day when they had good music. And they didn't strike me as the kind of band that wanted to prove anything to anybody, but maybe they felt they needed to. Particularly with the Metallica thing. Maybe that got them thinking along the lines of maybe we should be a bit more heavy, a bit more simple-minded, a bit more blatant in places. But as I say, in other places, very subtle and very good. It has stood the test of time. Reviews were average, some liked it, some didn't, same as always. But I think it's improved over time, as I say, like a fine wine. When I first heard it, I was a bit kind of, bit like that about it. But I heard it again last night, and obviously in the intervening decades, as it is now, and it's a good solid album. But to me, it marks the beginning of a decline for the band, because the two records that followed this, I couldn't get into at all. Didn't like them at all. I've heard them a couple of times. I didn't really like them. Maybe they're albums that grow on you, but to me, first impressions last, and I just couldn't get into them at all. They saved the day with Roots to Branches, which I believe came out roughly 10 years after this, maybe a little later. That is a good record. That's a great record. So, how did it do on the old charts? Not that it matters, but it did quite well in Germany, number 5. Switzerland, number 7 of all places. In this country, number 18, so that's the top 20. That's not bad. That's not to be sniffed at in Britain in 1989, when this record got no airplay whatsoever. Maybe it was Metallica fans buying it, I don't know. That's a joke. In America, it's number 56, so, they thought it was okay. But it's a long way off being the most popular band in the world, which is what they were in the very early 70s. So, not a bad record, enjoyable gig, saved my day, and probably made my month that year. So, still touring today, As far as the latest output goes, it's not bad. But Ian's voice has declined so much, as you all know. But I find it very, very difficult to get past that. To me, a voice is everything. It really is. A voice can break a band. To me. It can either make me like them or dislike them. Just on the voice alone. I shouldn't be that shallow, but I am. There you go. So that is Jethro Tull, Rock Island from 1989.